dear children, welcome to English class. In this video, we are going to learn a new poem and the title of the poem is My Shadow, written by Robert Louis Stevenson. The poem My Shadow is about a child who becomes curious about his shadow. The child is so excited about his shadow that moves with him, and he finds a lot of interesting things about his shadow. So the poem actually revolves around a child and his own shadow. So dear students, let us move on to the poem. My shadow. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He is very, very like me from the heels up to the head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. In the first stanza, the boy is excited with his shadow and likes to observe it. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me. So he says that he has a little shadow that is always present with him when he is going out anywhere in the sun. And what can be the use of him is more than I can see. The boy knows that there is more than he can do with his shadow than just observing it following him around everywhere. The boy says that it is just like him from the heel to the head. He is very, very like me from the heels up to the head. Here the poet uses heel to head to show that the boy is excited that the shadow is connected to him from the heel and then grows towards the head. The poet has used this term to show that the shadow is much like him at every part of the body. It is identical to him in every possible way. The boy is very much excited to see how it is always ahead of him. And I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. And the boy tells us that the shadow jumps into the bed before he does. He gets excited, the boy gets excited to see how the shadow is always following him, but is always ahead of him too. Now, stanza 2. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow, not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. For he sometimes shoots up taller like an Indian rubber ball, and he sometimes gets so little that there is none of him at all. Here, the boy is excited by how the shadow grows abnormally like he has never seen before. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow. So, the shadow grows abnormally like he has never seen before. And he says that the shadow grows faster unlike the normal kids. Not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. So the children, they used to grow in a slow rate, slower than that of the shadow. But here the shadow, the kid says that shadow grows faster than the normal kids. For he sometimes shoots up like an Indian rubber ball, and he sometimes gets so little that there is none of him at all. So he also gets excited to see how the shadow grows bigger all of a sudden without his knowledge. And sometimes it is so small that it is not seen at all. Here we have a phrase Indian rubber ball. The term has been used by the poet to show the pace of how the shadow grows fast and becomes small in one day. So here the Indian rubber ball is generally a ball used by children to play, which is very hard in nature. And the poet or the child is surprised by how the shadow grows big and small every day, which he has not seen happening to anyone or anything else around him. Stanza 3. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He stays so close beside me, he's a coward, you can see. I would think shame to stick to nurse as that shadow sticks to me. In this stanza, the boy says that his shadow does not know how the children or the normal kids play. and have fun around. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He says that the poet or the child says that the shadow does not know how to behave like the normal children, but only fool him around with its trick. The shadow used to fool the child with its trick in all the possible ways. He stays so close beside me, he's a coward, you can see. So the boy says that the shadow stays very close to him when he is playing and running around. When the child is playing and running around, the shadow is staying very close to him, just like a coward. He thinks that, or the child thinks that shadow is a coward. That is why he is not moving away from the child. The shadow is always very close to him or to the child. It only stays behind him and follows him wherever he goes. Stanza 4. One morning, very early before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errant sleepy head, had stayed at home behind me and was fast asleep in bed. The poet now describes a moment when the boy got up from his bed in early morning before sunrise. So the child woke up and he saw dews shining on every leaf and every flower, dewdrops shining on every leaf and flower. And the sun was only in the horizon and there was not much sunlight around him, and he could not, or the boy could not see his shadow. There was no much light, so the boy was not able to see his shadow. The poet says that, or with an excitement, the poet or the boy is telling to us that for the first time his shadow was not following him. And he says that, or the child says that, his shadow felt lazy and stayed behind at home. While he was enjoying the sunrise, his shadow stayed at his bed. Okay, because there was no sunrise, actually the boy couldn't see his shadow, and the boy with all excitement he is telling his shadow is lazy in early morning, and that is why his shadow stayed at home behind me and was fast asleep in the bed.